Well, hello everyone. Your lovely host Nathan Falida here with the latest version of Ag Uncensored podcast. I'm in the office, as you can see, and it's a little different. It's late at night because it's been a chaotic week, and um, I'll just say that lots going on. Lots of follow-ups from last week's chaotic info ag and whatnot. So. Here's also the late night version. Cheers, a little bourbon here. So maybe I should do more like this, but I don't got time for that usually either. Anyways, so this is actually my fourth iteration of trying to talk about this thing. And I've done different parts of it, and something happens, something gets screwed up, or my phone overheats in my pickup because the sun's shining on it, and it's a whole thing. Anyways, we'll see if this time works, especially late at night, unless my son comes popping out from his bed. We'll figure that out here, I guess. But, anyways, beyond all that, one thing I've wanted to bring up, especially after the last month, and I saw something a few weeks ago that kind of spurred some thoughts. And it's around a thing that Elon Musk said years back. I think I didn't really look into the whole pieces of it, but and whatever you think of him, I'm not even gonna get into that. Yeah, SpaceX is great, Tesla is whatever it is, all the other stuff. I'm just not getting into that. But he did coin something. I'm not sure 100% if he brought it up or if someone else said it. Who knows? He's stole other ideas. Trust me. I think we all know that. But he brought up this thing called the Idiot Index, hence the title. And basically, it is a ratio of what it costs to make a product versus what the raw materials cost. So in his case, it was a rocket. The raw materials, essentially are the same in the tech we have. You got your titanium, your fuel, all your rocket stuff, your configurations, all the raw materials of building the product. And then what it costs to put that all together and sell that. So, what are your costs? I think that's how he pretty much puts it. What is the business's cost to this? Not necessarily what it's sold for, but that probably plays into it as well. So I think if I remember correctly, rockets were like a 70-1 ratio, which is pretty dang high. There's been some other, I think it was mentioned like nuclear energy is like 150 or something like that. It's crazy high. Vehicles are relatively lower. Exact number, I don't know. I remember like a score of 10 or something like that on something I read. Of course, in agriculture, traditional agriculture, like growing corn or soybeans. I mean, right now, okay, the raw materials needed to grow corn by the acre. If you want to look into that, we might be at a negative ratio, to be honest. Happens a lot. That's why crop insurance exists. Protection programs. Ag has done very good over time figuring out this idiot index. A lot of industries have. So to his point, it's trying to find things in industry that have a high idiot index to bring it down, because that's where the opportunity lies. That's where the value lies, is solving these problems. He was doing that on rockets. People are trying to do that on nuclear energy. Of course, there's a lot of different pieces in between. So I thought, well, why the hell not talk about that on the AgTech side of things? So here I go. And here's the reality. We do have a high idiot index in a certain way. I'll start off by saying certain parts used to be worse. For instance, hardware. I remember in the early days, the later 90s, early 2000s, um, you buy a monitor, GPS, all that stuff, it's like 30 grand, for like the top end stuff, maybe even more. Even when RTK was like really early, I mean, everything was pretty expensive, but the electronics are really expensive too. All the different pieces to it, the receivers, because they weren't made at scale and mass scale and all that, and electronics, and all that. Uh, the idiot index was pretty high to develop these systems, and then the cost of it to build it was quite a bit too. Of course, that's gotten a lot better. Now we might still sell a brand new monitor in a cab for, let's say, $10,000. Of course, what it actually costs one of the OEMs or whomever to make it is, might be in the hundreds of dollars, to be honest. Because half the time, the processors in them and components, I mean, they're mass marketed in different ways. It's only just kind of how the look and feel is, and half the time those are pretty universal. At least some of the minor players. John Deere will make all their own stuff, and Case and others and AGCO like that. Of course, they haven't always either. Some of that stuff was made at mass scale for stuff in construction and all that. So, but the components inside of them, I mean, good Lord, the amount of components inside modern hardware is, you don't really custom make that stuff. Uh, Even if you're putting like little different sensors and circuits and boards together and cameras and whatever, you're usually buying those off the shelf, and then it's how you configure them and all that. But as with most hardware, I would say the actual cost of the materials versus what it costs to put it all together and create a product out of it is fairly low. It's going to depend on the group and the type of thing, uh, maybe getting into the physical side, okay, robotics probably has a higher idiot index right now because of the rarity of some of the pieces it uses. Of course, some of it are bigger, but then everything's like really customized, and some of these machines that are sold, they're $1 million. All the components of that machine are probably not that. All the raw materials is probably fairly low, but then putting it all together and building on this whole platform around it for agriculture is quite high. So yeah, you could figure out your own idiot index on that. What I'm going to focus on more today, though, is the software end, the digital data side of it, because it's more my world and more of the things I talk about. So, being at this late night edition, cheers to that to start, as it is 10:22 p.m. So we'll see how this continues to go. I'm going to try not to go as late because I want to get this out by tomorrow morning because it's Friday. Yeah. Anyways, so with software, what is the raw material, for all of that type of stuff? Well, you could count servers and, internet access and stuff like that, I suppose. That's kind of universal stuff, so I'm not really going to do that. And I was looking at some other people that were like comparing software with the idiot index. So you can Google all this stuff; it's out there. I'm take it for what it's worth. I didn't do a lot of research on this. I just kind of took the main point and was like, okay, how does this kind of figure out? This is how I do it. So, what is the idiot index for software, and what is the raw material? Well, the raw material is people. And people are expensive. We all know that. Anybody that's done this or hired programmers and project managers and architects and all this other crap to put software together know that putting a software complete together as a product can be quite expensive. And how you would count it is, do you count it as the physical raw product as like one person, like the value of what like a salary of one person is, and then the cost to produce that product, call it $10 million. So if you're hiring someone for 100 grand and it costs $10 million to make this end product. Is it 100? Is the idiot index 100? I don't know. That's kind of how I think I read before it's represented. Now you could say if you have 10 people, making this product, it still costs you $10 million over so many years. Is that the ratio? I don't know. That's hard to say. Like I said, I don't think this idiot index was exactly made for software. I'm going to attribute it to how I would think of it. Let's go to the rocket. Okay. The raw materials to make that one rocket, to make that one user get it, regardless if it's one person or 10,000 people. So what I'm concluding to this is the average cost probably to the average programmer or employee, and then how much money you've had to put into it to create the product. So yes, I would say it's pretty high. You could, how we built stuff back in the day. I mean, we did it for super cheap compared to others. So our idiot index is probably a little cheaper. Now, when all the money came in to the ag space with, an AgTech, precision ag, yeah, it got pretty high. And a lot of it was, people trying to build things in speed. So they had a lot more people and they need to raise a lot more money. And there's always these assumptions made. And I'm not going to get into that, but we all know the truth to that was something's not great here, because the valuations haven't been great, and situations of getting that value back have been poor. It's beating a dead horse at this point in time. But what I wanted to talk about is, okay, if our idiot index is high with digital products, software, and things of that nature, things tied to it, I guess it depends what is tied to it. Maybe you have hardware that has a lower idiot index, but the software, you have to build something, but you're not building a full-fledged software. So your idiot index with that software is a little cheaper compared to one that is building an enterprise solution. You're probably going to have a higher idiot index. Now, with that said, what does that mean for the future? Well, I think you all can assume that the idiot index is getting quite a bit lower because all the AI vibe coding stuff, and it's not even that. It's just you can use AI to test configurations and test processes and come up with the basics. So you don't have to rewrite it. It's not all manual. I mean, even the last 15 years, the different repositories for different processes that are pretty universal. GitHub and other areas. I can't even think of the websites right now. I remember some article was most of the internet's just built on copy and paste, because it was just copying similar protocols that people just put on the web, and it's over and over again. Well, let's say more and more, basically what's happened is the LLMs are just taking that and saying, well, we'll just do it. And then they can kind of put logic and all this other stuff. Of course, it's not perfect. Any programmer tell you it is not perfect. But we're really early too, so things are going to get wild. And if you want some examples, colleague of mine, Nick Horob, he's building this little ERP system, and I stopped by his office the other day. He was playing around with it, and I was kind of just seeing how he's going about it, and I was like, what do you think this would? And he's only been doing it for a few weeks, and he's got kind of a little mini running thing that looks pretty cool. I was like, okay, how much have you spent on this? And he's like, I just do with the Claude $200 a month thing. I was like, well, what have you spent? I was like, well, if I just paid by the credits, it would have been I don't know, it's over $1,000, but not much over. I was like, but it's not that, so it's just $200. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. With our experiences, I was like, well, I have a number in my head. What do you think this would have cost just to get to this point? A few years back. He's developed his software and basically, I mean, it wasn't a finished product yet, but just from where it is, tens of thousands of dollars for sure. for like kind of almost an MVP where he's almost at right now. Uh, if you think of how a startup would do something like that, I mean, you might have been 100 grand at that point. So yeah, times are changing. Now, this is one semi-trivial example. I talked to another guy this morning actually. Um, this is kind of a side project, and he's making a kind of a chat feature wrapped around MCP, which for those that don't know what MCP is, it's this was a multi-contextual protocol. It's kind of this universal process, the open process that AI is using to basically talk to other stuff. So if you configure stuff in MCP, then the chatbot can tie itself to it. And that's just kind of like what's happening. It's not an API, it's not an SDK, but it connects to those things and makes it translatable. So you can basically talk to it. That's how a lot of these systems are working. So anyways, he did that. And then he tied some ag APIs to it. Like there was a weather one, I think USDA, whatever theirs was, and then like my John Deere. And I mean, he was talking to those things. And I was like, doing this a few years ago would have cost a decent amount of money. And he threw it up using some of these. And, he has knowledge in programming too. So it's not taking away from that. I mean, he did that in I think he said like a month or something like that. That product that he showed me today in its current form 10 years ago could have raised $20 million. And I'm not even kidding. At what it was now, was the speed and pace of it that 10 years ago? No, it wasn't. The APIs for some of these groups have become so much easier to implement and take on that it just has. The early days were hard and complex. They just were, and some are harder for various reasons than others. Anyways, I was thinking about that. Okay, that's going to help our idiot index. We're going to be able to bring that down, way lower, because we don't have to use as much of a human. If that's our raw product, and then the other raw product is AI processing, which isn't as expensive as another human, and you're augmenting it. Well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Idiot index is going to get way lower. All right, we won, right? Right? Well, I'm going to take another drink and I'll get to that. So, yes, inherently, we are bringing our idiot index down. But what's the effect of that? This is where things get interesting and also get a little stupid and scary. So, living through this whole time frame since the beginning of software and ag to like where it is now, I'm one of the rare people that literally has gone through the entire history of it. That's why you're listening to me. And that's why you take what I take in and actually kind of maybe trust it, or like, I'm not just a talking head. I've lived it. I can tell you all the different phases and how it's all gone. Even it makes me think like, God, I should maybe get into some basic programming now, because now with these other tools, like I can maybe start actually, instead of going through years and years of training and all this, maybe if I took like a 6-month course or something, countless of them out there. Hey, I can build some of my stuff here. I got so many damn ideas in my head, as I've talked to plenty of you about, and half of them will never happen, or most of them will never happen. Even my current one, it's a concept with OpenFMIS. It's I got some stuff, but how do I turn that into something? It's still, you still need things, you still need money, you still need people and all that. Well, okay, with the idiot index going down because of AI coding, vibe coding, however you want to call it, that's going to be a lot easier for a lot of other people that have these skills, whether they already had them, and it's maybe plenty enough. And then with AI coding, it's like, it's enhanced, 10x. To example, Nick, like he wasn't a hardcore programmer, but he knew some little things that he trained himself a little bit to understand, to run his company better and to try things. Well, that's helped him. It wasn't a ton, but it was enough to kind of get this process going. So think of someone that is an experienced programmer that's like, well, I'll just create my own AgTech solution. I'll create my own software and I'll put it out there. And I can do it in 6 months, where it'll take a company, $5 million and, 10 people. I can do it with this now in, 6 months or a year, to really, really refine it. Yeah, that's reality. That's where it's coming. And if you're a company in AgTech that has, current running software, wherever it is, and you don't see where this is going and aren't a little fearful, well, you're an idiot yourself, because a lot of what we use is actually kind of old. I mean, shit, even my family's company stuff, yeah, it's some older stuff. Now I plan to actually use AI to enhance it, upgrade it into these other things. Not the same thing, but some other stuff because of how we built it, a little bit more universal. Now, there's a lot of time and effort and structure put in that, which that is still can be valuable. So for all the legacy groups or groups that have been around for, at least 5 years, it's not that you're worthless now or something. It's that you have to shift because there's going to be 10 times more groups. We thought there was a lot of AgTech groups and startups, the last 5, 10, 12 years, whatever you want to call it. I think it's going to 10x because it's just so much easier to create some of these little solutions, whether it's accounting or grain marketing or tracking, things from insurance to agronomics to scouting to, you name it, you keep on going. Now, luckily, some of these groups that do exist, they do have teams, they have revenue coming in, and there's already been showcasing that some of them are letting go people because they're like, oh, I don't need 10 programs, I can get by with 5 and get more done actually. But you want your core people and all that. So it's just where I'm getting with this is, while money is kind of low in AgTech, and I don't know if it's actually going to get better because of our idiot index dropping because of AI. It's there's going to be so many more players asking, but then there might not be, because it's going to be so much easier with all the tools and other things people are building, because other industries and other parts and sectors and structures, they're building more and more and more faster. Like just literally in the last year, especially the last year, as people have gotten kind of used to these things, I've seen more new companies spout up, talk about their new process or whatever on LinkedIn than I've ever seen. And this is like broad. So I'm not talking just ag. Ag is a little different, don't get me wrong. We can actually almost kind of protect ourselves because we're just kind of this old industry, have older processes. A lot of our back end stuff is old. So changing that, even with AI, is like, it's going to help. But, we're still a good old boys network as a whole. We really are. That hasn't really changed too much. But guess what? A lot of people are retiring and dying in ag. There's a whole change happening. It's already started. It's the next 10, 20 years is going to be crazy. We're going to have a lot less people no matter what. We have to use these tools to kind of augment that. We're going to have to on all sectors of ag. It's just there is no other answer unless some chaotic black swan event happens, I guess. I don't know. Aliens come or super volcano erupts or asteroid, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to have an influx of new tools in ag, guaranteed. Probably not an influx of complicated tools, but a lot of little things. Of course, that's what we've always needed, because there's so much nuance and regional differences. I've talked before is, in North Dakota, we have 20 different staple crops. Well, no one's built a software for edible beans. or for sunflowers, or for, well, different factions of sunflowers. There's oils and there's confectionaries. Confectionaries are the ones you eat and, ball game and spit out. Oils are your sunflower oil. And there's other, edible beans is like 10 different types of edible beans: pinks, navies, pintos, blacks, kidneys. There's other ones too. Now, theoretically, for a specific industry, even if it's small, like what I think edible beans, and for example, I think North Dakota, it's like, I don't know, is it 800,000 acres or something like that? Go on the USDA and check it out. Don't hold me to that. No one would build a big software just for edible beans. They just wouldn't. Like I've said, that's like, but we need that because you get to handhold that industry and you could own it inherently. If you just concentrate on that one crop, and most of the edible beans are done in North Dakota, and then there's Michigan and Western Nebraska, some in Wyoming, and there's some other areas here and there. Most are here. Where I grew up is the largest concentration of edible beans in a county in the country. Pretty sure that's still accurate. It's like, well, geez, I should just make a software for that. Well, I shouldn't. In a traditional sense, I maybe should make a module or something, and it's like, okay, then I could bring that out through APIs and other people can implement it. But that might not really work because then we have this other problem, and this is where I'm going, and it of course ties in this shit I'm doing. Of course it is. We can have 1,000 more different apps and products and new solutions, and it's going to be well more than that globally. I'll say right now, call it, we have 1,000 now globally, different AgTech software pieces, portals, apps, APIs, you name it. I think in the next 5 years, for sure, that's going to be 10 times that. Because it'll just be so much easier for people that know programming. They might get fired from their jobs, at Microsoft or Google or whatever local company, because AI is taking over that. They need less people, and these guys will be like, well, shit, I know this industry. There'll be people in ag that are getting let go now that are programmers. Those exist. Or certain people that know a little bit of coding, but maybe did more project management, or maybe they did this or that, whatever it might be. And they might say, screw it, I'm just going to build my own thing. And they're going to build their own thing. Of course, it's not going to be full-fledged. Making a big enterprise system is tough. It is very tough, even with all the AI stuff, because there's all these customer nuances. There's relationship things. There's how contracts are set. There's legal stuff. There's all these other things that just don't, a software tool doesn't just solve overnight, no matter what. Just look at ERP systems. Good Lord, they're just complicated, and most are run off ERP systems that are 10 years old or more in what they really are. Okay, so we can't just start from scratch. Legacy systems are they're going to slowly enhance these things. They're not going to just tear apart their old stuff, because change is tough from whatever business is using it. So it's like, how do you do that? And that's a tough thing. That's why ag is, we have some time. Of course, money is low, morale is low. It's a little depressing, but that was the optimism I was talking about last week. There is this optimism that maybe we can start building these things that are more specific to these different areas. And while our maybe core product is X, we can start making these other little things that kind of broaden out that, and we can, put the web and the matrix up more. Now, to my bigger point, this is why I brought up this concept of OpenFMIS, and which really means is just core geospatial processes. Someone might say, well, I'll use this little AI thing to use this the same way others have done, and then or bits and pieces of things, and I'll create my own kind of geospatial stuff. But that's going to be different than this group and this group. So if you have 10,000 new groups in 5 years, and they're all building up different geospatial bits and pieces, and sure, a lot of it is similar. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's all exactly different. There's similarities. But this is why I want to create a kind of a standard framework for it. which is basically the same. And no one sells that out. No one's really going to sell it out. This is why we got to get more into open source. So this is my part is it's like a little geospatial thing that I want to get going. And yeah, I have some code that can do it now. So I'm going to open that up. If other people want to open up theirs or contribute to it, doesn't even matter. Like whatever, I don't care. It's like, it's open. That's the point, is we contribute to the same core things. Now, whoever starts the idea or their core stuff is that, whatever. I inherently don't care. I just want it to be done. And I'm just maybe the first to say it in the ag sector. So at least I can start with the idea and maybe get some people going, and they might think, oh, well, our stuff's better than what his is, or we have more resources so we can do it faster. Whatever. Go ahead. Go do it. I'm not stopping you. I have some other things that I'm trying to get going, but yeah, there's a lot going on. Let's say I've talked about this. I'm in the midst of a lot of little things, but we need, if AI coding is getting to the extent it's getting to, it's gonna get better. I mean, trillions of dollars worldwide are being spent on this. It's not going away. This, is a bigger thing than when the internet actually came out. It really is. So we have to start thinking, how do we use it? Well, we can't just create 10,000 other applications and they're just all sitting out there. It just piss off farmers even more. There's already too many for them. They don't want that. They might want those 10,000 tools to exist inherently, just like an app store, so they can pick and choose what they want. Well, we don't have that. We haven't brought in open source and bring in, marketplace ideas on that, because we all wanted our own marketplace. We all wanted our own dashboard. Who the hell cares? Why are we so fixated on that? And this is just going to get worse with AI. This is the point. We have to change our mindset on how we go about these things with what is coming, especially in ag. It's great if people want to create all these different things, and they will. But if they don't build those things off of core things, like some geospatial stuff, reference data things, data translation pieces, descriptions of things, what is the dictionary of ag? And we use the same words. That was the thing that dealt with Ag Gateway years ago. Common dictionary. We have to work with common standards. Of course, some will say, why do you need standards when AI could just figure it out? Instead of, I've talked about this, is, we can get a death by committee talking about how do we, translate this to this, what's the best method procedure, when probably if you just put the right contextual pieces in, just like literally in these things standard bodies do, these, confluence things and different things. If you just like added all that information in, an LLM would just be like, well, here's the standard. I don't even need it configured. I just will follow these things, and then I'll figure out new ways to do it that'll make it better. Do we need standards then? I don't know. That's a question I'm starting to wonder. Would we actually need them? If at least the context is there, if the labeling of what these things are and aren't is at least fine, if one method is at least defined what it is, and it could be called a different word. Like I remember, there was 10 different, variations of what the definition of precision ag was. And I was adding my own version into it. And that was like trying to be used in the Ag Gateway dictionary. Well, precision ag means different things for different people. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need one exact definition. We need contextual definitions and labeling. So just in the English language, some words can mean different things, even though it's spelled the same way. I'm trying to think on the top of my head what one is. Can't right now. Doesn't matter. If at least we put out there what we mean by it, and just as a human, to me, you talking, you can kind of understand what I'm saying. Well, that's what these AI things are doing. They're trying to They're understanding our language, but it can do it on a massive scale faster. Now we still have to help train these things. So maybe standards aren't as important. Maybe some of the things are and aren't. Now, if you ask me on where this goes geospatially, I'm not gonna lie. While I think framework on it would be good, so that how we do certain things are similar, just kind of universal. But maybe that's not needed. At the same time, I'll contradict myself. I've seen more and more AI geospatial stuff, and it's a little different. It's harder because they're not just like data tables; they're like visual representations of things. So the context of explaining them are harder. And when you get down to pixel level stuff in ag, which is even harder for just big geospatial people, it gets even harder to do that. So how much does that need to be done? What does that mean? I've been thinking about that a lot more lately, just because, I add a field one way and another software adds another field another way, even though they're pretty close. As long as, I can understand as a person the relationship. If I see one hierarchy of things and another hierarchy of things, or how someone added a field boundary and how they had attributed it here and then how we did it here, like in general, like I get the sameness. Well, can we just train an AI to understand that sameness? Is that what some of these protocols are for? Or do we need these main frameworks that are common so that interoperability is easier? Or will these other things just figure it out? And they can do it at scale where humans couldn't. Look at old software, the old SMSs and, FarmWorks and whatnot. Things were done generally, the format, like a shapefile was, okay, for that. So shifting a shapefile here to shapefile there, basically the same. The structure in here is a little different than there. Well, I just got to do this and move this here and move this there, and then it's about the same. Okay, it took some people and some time. Well, theory and LLM could do it like that, or some agentic thing, whatever it would be. So, do we need that? I don't know. The more I think about it, this is why I put my stuff out as a concept, to just get people thinking. We haven't even done open source enough. But open source things are needed, I think, to make AI things work better. So I think we still need it. It's just maybe we have 5 different ways we could add a field boundary in its varying ways, depending on what the data is. Maybe there's 10 different ways how we do an analysis for an as-applied file or a satellite image or weather data or elevation data or yield data, whatever. There's 100 different ways we can do that. Okay, well, as long as we explain why we do it differently, and in the context of that, label our process correctly, AI should be able to figure that out. So it's not about necessarily this open source standard. It's just having all of our base procedures that don't make us money be in an open area, an open place, that something can grab from it to understand how we do it. Oh, getting heavy for tonight, huh? Jesus. Anyways, I'm getting deep, and I'm going a lot farther than I thought, because this is actually not where my other videos went before, but this is where I was going. And I think anyone that's listening to this, your wheels are spinning right now, because mine are. It's made me even rethink a lot of things that I've been thinking about lately. On a secondary note, how I write this out, hopefully I can, I can configure it in a short way, because no one's going to read 40 minutes worth of shit. These are the things we got to think about with all this. And as I started out with the idiot index, okay, maybe we're bringing the idiot index down. It's going to be lower, and that's all great. Yeah, well, the people that are building these things and want to build these things and have the ideas, us people in ag, we can still be idiots. And a lot of us still kind of are. But it's important for us to try to remove our own idiot indexes for ourselves and as groups, to rethink the narrative a little bit, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind and you're screwed. I'm sorry. Uh, if you don't take these things on and really put some thought to them and just assume what you've known over the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. This is 31st year of just been involved in this stuff from a kid, as I've talked about. If I relied on what I thought this was 10 years ago, and I needed to like make it better from what it was 10 years ago, I'm an idiot. I'm fooling myself. Even 5 years ago, even now, almost like a year ago. Heck, I'm challenging myself from some things I've thought about the last few months and weeks, even. At the same time, we can't just wait. We got to build things. We got to just do things. And ag is still slow. We're still stubborn. So we don't have to rush into it either. We can screw ourselves a lot if we rush into this stuff. Rush into AI. I think it can be all these great things. This is why I think the things that we have built and put a lot of time and effort in, it's the thought, it's the thinking of these structures and these processes. They can be old, they can be, whatever they are, but they still are valuable because a lot of time and thought was put into that. And that's something that an AI thing can't just generate. It can't generate the contextual knowledge and time and effort and working with customers and how it's worked with them and how you change that to make it work better and better and better. So even if you're an old legacy system, you should be able to use these things and it should just make it better. Like I would argue, okay, SMS still looks like standard, most used, basically solid, you download on your computer software. I just think, God, if they just updated that with all these AI things, holy crap. Al Myers and team, I hope you're listening and thinking about that. You should really do it. And maybe you already are doing it. I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe you got other crap going on. But if anything, this could be a resurgence for legacy groups. This is what I'm trying to do. Take some of our legacy code and reorganize it using these things. Not having to build it from scratch, because why? What does it matter anymore? AI can just kind of bring it to what it needs to be, but it's using that contextual history, that craftsmanship to change it. Others can do this too. So in a sense, it doesn't matter where you're at. So anyways, I've been talking way too long. I think I hear a kid crying. So wish me luck. But yeah, idiot index is getting low for technology and business processes in our industry, and it'll get lower and lower because that's how it works. Let's not become idiots ourselves, though. So, in a sense, the people themselves in the industry, we still kind of have a high idiot index. Varying point of view there, but let's think about this a little more. There's a lot to think about, but curious on your thoughts, and thanks for listening if you've made it this far. Otherwise, hopefully whatever you've read gets to the point. I'll do my best. We'll see you later, everyone. Thanks again.